Hey everybody! In today's video, we are going to play with texture on a background. We're going to do some kind of subtle texture and some not so subtle texture and just show you how much it can add, even if you're doing a very clean and simple card with a single simple image. So I am starting with some caramel ink, which to me, this is one of the core inks. And this is the ink in the Hero Arts line that feels the most like a true sepia to me. It has like a really warm yellow that just kind of makes me happy. And I'm going for sort of a vintage look. When I'm finished with these today, they're almost going to look like the specimen cards that were popular in the late 1900s when we were stamping. They're a very fun little project, but it's just going to have an overall vintage feel. And I have taped off the edges so that I can get a nice clean rectangle. I just lined some 1-inch tape up with the edge of a 4 by 5¼ inch white card front. Now, one of these I'm going to be applying more ink. That's the one that you see me doing now. I'm going to have some kind of bolder. Some of the textures are going to be bolder on this one. I just wanted to show you the difference between just applying a few extra layers of ink and what that makes the color look like. So you can sort of see the difference here. One of them's a little bit lighter, one of them's a little bit darker, and they're both just kind of a blank canvas. Now, putting the tape on also protects me from kind of stamping in some clean area that I shouldn't be stamping in. So it's doing double duty. It's giving me a nice clean edge of ink blending, but it's also protecting the rest of the card from my wild and woolly stamping that I'm about to do. So we'll start with this lighter one. You get kind of a bonus because it'll also hold it down to your work surface. And I love, love, love this new mixed texture set that really has everything you could want. I love this street sort of map, city map view texture. There's script, there's non-script text, there's clocks, there's watercolor swooshes. I mean, it just kind of has it all, and it's perfect for art journaling. So what I'm going to do is just take some of these stamps and I'm going to ink them up in the same ink. And you can see if you go full strength that this is going to be kind of a bold image. So you can decide whether you want to do that or whether you want to go half strength, which I'll do both during this video because it'll give you kind of a depth to your background. There'll be some of the foreground images will be bolder and some of the background images will be fainter. And we'll just kind of go through this stamp set and add very soft textures like you see here, and then bolder textures like a full strength ink. The thing that makes this a really easy and fun background technique is you just need one ink pad. That's it. Now my foreground image that I'm using later is going to be in black, but you can get a lot done with a single color of ink. And so just pick your favorite ink from the core line. It doesn't have to be a sepia color. It can be anything, any tone on tone colored print. I love this little watch, like old-timey watch. So some of these you'll see I'm stamping off lightly first and then putting them onto the background. All of these are going to contribute to just an overall really interesting background that somebody who gets this card is going to want to sit and look at for a while. And you can see when you see that up close how interesting that is. The difference in these background stamps too is a difference in shape. So you have some round shapes, some very geometric shapes like that ledger shape, then some kind of organic shapes like this stone or brick shape that you see here. And it just makes for a great mixed media set. So I love it. In case I haven't said that, I love it. Now I'll be taking one of these smaller kind of watercolor paint splat little stamps and applying that. This gives you like something to kind of move around and look at when you have little different shapes sitting out there. And then, of course, you know I love text. I already did the script stamp, but I feel like it needs the non-script version as well. And I'm just stamping them in different places and with different ink saturations on both of these backgrounds. But look how detailed they are close up. And the reason that I'm keeping this monochrome is the black stamping that I'm going to do is going to be a big contrast to this background. Now I have this amazing grungy dot stamp, and I'm inking that up in white ink and putting that on the background. This is going to be very subtle, but when you look at this up close, it adds so much. I love it. And on the darker version, of course, this is going to show up a little bit more, but you're going to see it up close on both of these, and it's just amazing what it adds. It has like this distressed texture to the dots that is to die for. So this is the satisfying part where I remove the tape, and despite what looked like kind of a messy process, I have this nice, clean, crisp rectangle in the center of this card front. I love that. Now, some of the ink will be wet on that Post-it tape, so keep your hands clean. Don't touch that ink on that tape. It takes a little bit longer to dry. And then set the card front up in your MISTI. Now, I'm using this beautiful butterfly set. And I'm going to offset this butterfly just a bit. And here's the really important tip. When you are doing what I'm about to do, which is to add another medium for a truly mixed media card, I'm going to add colored pencils. What you really want to do is do not remove the stamp from your MISTI after you stamp this butterfly, and you will see why later on. So just leave it there until you're done. So I'm stamping this in black, and right away you can see how that pops away from that background. Even though there's a lot of color in the background, the black really makes it pop against the monochrome. That's why I didn't do any of the texture in black. So look at that beautiful little butterfly. Now I'm going to take my favorite colored pencils, and I'm going to color both halves of this butterfly. And what that will do is there will be a contrast between the part that's colored on the caramel ink and the part that's colored on the white, even though I'm using exactly the same colors. So to begin with, I'm using kind of a phthalo blue color, and then I'm going to add a lighter section with like a chartreuse color. These are whole bean pencils, but just use any pencils that you have. I'm just super attached to these. Then I'm adding a dark teal in the center for shadowing. And that will just be right close to the little butterfly's body. And then white pencil, why is it so magical? You don't have to work on a bunch of blending and spending a bunch of time on your colored pencil. All you got to do is go over it with white, and everything blends so soft and pretty. You can see the difference between the top and the bottom there. And you can see how short my white pencil is because I use it for this all the time. It's like cheater blending. It just makes everything so much easier. So no matter what your pencil set is, and I will say the Prismacolor white pencil blends phenomenally with any brand. So even if you're kind of mixing and matching your pencils, going over the top with a Prismacolor white pencil, you will thank me later, I promise. So now I am blending these all out. It also gives you a little bit of a highlight, although it's not adding that much white color because there's so much color underneath. And I'm just putting just very faint layers. I'm actually using a pretty light hand here to do this. So it's not adding just a bunch of white, but it does have this magical property of blending that so beautifully. And it's easy. A lot of times it feels like colored pencil coloring can take you a really long time, but it doesn't have to. And the ink actually kind of does some of the work for you. It's like warming up. It's like an underpainting in kind of a classical art technique. And it's doing some of the work for you. Whereas when I'm coloring on the white page, I have to put a little bit more of that waxy pencil down to get the same effect that I'm getting over there on top of the ink. You will notice that the bright color, the chartreuse, does show up a little bit brighter and kind of more vibrant on the white. And that's one of the fun things about doing this split image. But you can see I'm not doing a technique here. I'm not doing some kind of artistic coloring that's going to take you 300 years to learn. Not at all. I'm just putting down color and then I am blending on top of it with a white pencil. That is it. And it's very satisfying. Colored pencils are one of those things that are super transportable. So you could pre-stamp some images if you were going out of town or if you're going on a trip, and then you can just color them in your spare time. You don't have to worry about bringing anything messy with you. Especially with ink blended backgrounds like this, where you've masked and ink blended and texture stamped a bunch of backgrounds. You could bring one stamp set and your colored pencils, and you can make cards and cards and cards and cards and cards with a bunch of different themes. Now I picked a pencil that I felt like was closest to this caramel ink for the body of this butterfly, and I'm feeling really good about how close a match that is. And then I will add a little bit of gray pencil to do just some darker shading in a few areas. I feel like that always kind of makes everything pop. I usually go back with a dark purple or a dark gray on almost everything that I color with colored pencils. And even on the little brown body, I'm adding white just because it blends everything so beautifully again. So now this is why I wanted you to leave your stamp set up, because look at this right now before I stamp it, and you'll notice that because of the colored pencil, I dulled over some of those lines of that stamped image, and they just pop so much more if you overstamp them with black ink. Just note that it will take a second to dry on top of that kind of waxy colored pencil, or you can heat set it, which is what I'm doing here. And then it will be smudge proof and perfect and ready to go. But isn't that beautiful? With the sort of half colored butterfly, half white butterfly. I just love the way that looks. So fun. Now, I think that bright contrasts of white dots or black dots, depending on what you've colored, are really important just for a little eye-catching detail. So I am coming in with a white paint pen and adding just a few little white dots. I feel like that adds so much, so very much to this little scene. Now I can remove the butterfly safely from my MISTI, and I can get set up for the second image, which is going to be a vegetable. You know how I feel about my vegetables. I love them. I love vegetables. I'm not going to apologize for it, and I'm going to use carrot. So this carrot just happens to span the diagonal of this little rectangle, which is so perfect. So this image is going to be completely contained inside the textured background. It's going to be surrounded by that beautiful grungy dot texture. It's a little bit lighter and almost gives kind of a three-dimensional look to the background. I love it. It almost looks like graffiti back there. It's so fun. So I'll stamp this a couple times in black ink, and then we're going to color this. And this one is so simple to color, because it's really just, there's two sections of the image, and one of them's orange and one of them's green, and that's really all you've got going on. So this is going to be very simple, but I am going to do something that I do a lot on dark backgrounds, and that is put down a layer of white before I start coloring. This builds a natural highlight into whatever it is that you're coloring. And then when you add the other colors on top of it, you get kind of a glow from colored pencils. It's one of the unique things about that medium that you can do a white layer first. You can do this with acrylic paint as well if that's your preferred medium. The one medium you can't do it in is watercolor. So I'm going in with the chartreuse. I'm kind of sharing colors between these two. They're like a little card set. Very easy to highlight that. And then I'm going to put a yellow highlight, kind of a new gamboge highlight on this carrot as well. And I'm also going to try to leave a little bit of white space since this is such a cylindrical object. I would like for there to be a little highlight. So I'm just putting the orange at the edges and then coming back and blending with that lighter yellow. And see me trying to leave that little white highlight? Colored over a lot of it. But it's okay because I'm going to use this to blend with, so you'll get a little bit of that white in there anyway. So now I'll come in with a darker green into the foliage and just put it in the places where you can kind of see some of these leaves are like behind some of the other leaves. So that's a natural place where you can put that darker green, and then just go back and blend it with the chartreuse again. So fun. And this is just a very easy to color image. You can always finish with white. That'll sort of pull everything together. And then I'm adding just a little bit more white on that carrot, and see how round it looks? It's so easy. This is a very easy, it looks really involved with that background, but really honestly, they're very easy. They're very easy. So here are the close-ups. You can see the great highlights. We're going to bump this up again by restamping it. The beauty of being able to do that really makes you look so professional. So I love the opportunity to stamp again over colored pencil, or even markers. Even markers can wash out your images just a little bit. So now it's nice and crispy. You might even say crunchy since it's a carrot. And then I am heat setting that, which is important in my climate. And I'll come back in with the Posca pen on this one as well, and just add some dots and little pops. The overall color of this image is lighter than the other one, so I'm not adding just a ton of white dots, but I do think even that little pop makes a big, big difference on these images. So now all I have to do is add a sentiment. I hope you've enjoyed this. More details are on the blog. Thanks so much for watching.